The air in the banquet hall felt incredibly heavy, thick with the scent of lilies and cloying lies. I saw his face, bewildered, pale, as my voice, unexpectedly strong and clear, cut through the festive silence. He had just finished his toast, dedicated to our 20th wedding anniversary, extolling our unbreakable unity and eternal love. His words echoed emptily, like shattered glass scattering across the polished floor, reflecting the blinding light of the crystal chandeliers. My hands tightly clutched a delicate silk handkerchief, a gift from him many years ago, a symbol of our life together. Now it felt alien, permeated by his deceit. I felt every gaze in the room, surprised and stunned, fixed upon me as I slowly rose. A thought flashed through my mind about how meticulously he had planned this evening to solidify his reputation as an exemplary husband, a devoted family man, and how quickly that reputation would shatter into a million tiny pieces as soon as I uttered the next words. His eyes, which had once looked at me with such sincerity, were now filled with panic, as if he realized the inevitability of his downfall. My name is Elizabeth, and until this evening, I believed I had lived a happy life beside the man I considered my destiny. Robert. His name now resonated in my mind like a hollow bell, announcing the end of something vital. He had been my world, my anchor, my love for 25 years. I supported him in everything, believed his every word, built our life on trust and devotion. But all of it turned out to be a meticulously planned lie, woven from deceit and betrayal. Now I stood before everyone who had come to share in our joy, ready to dismantle his hypocritical facade. I was prepared to make him pay for every single day, for every minute he had forced me to live in my own illusory world. I grew up in a small, cozy town where family values and faithfulness were not just words, but the very foundation of life. My parents, who had lived together for over 50 years, were always an example to me of true love and mutual respect. They taught me that marriage is a sacred union, demanding devotion, patience, and unwavering faith in one's partner. I absorbed these lessons like a sponge, dreaming of building just such a strong and happy family of my own. My world was simple and clear, and I yearned to build it that way. I believed in honesty, in the goodness of people, and in the idea that love could overcome any obstacle. When I met Robert, I was 22 years old. He was a tall, charming man with piercing blue eyes and an infectious smile. He worked as an engineer at a small firm, and his ambitions were readily apparent. He spoke of the future with such passion that I immediately felt he was special. Robert was attentive, always finding the right words to support me, and his hugs offered a sense of complete peace and security. I felt completely protected by him, as if behind a stone wall, safe from all the troubles of the world. We married 2 years later, and it was the happiest day of my life. I remember looking into his eyes at the altar and being certain that our love would be eternal. The first years of our marriage were filled with joy and new discoveries. We built our home together, brick by brick, transforming it into a cozy nest. I fully supported Robert in his career growth. When he decided to establish his own construction company, I was the first to believe in his success. I worked day and night, handling the bookkeeping, answering calls, organizing meetings. I sacrificed my own dream of becoming a history teacher, as I believed our joint success was more important. I was his muse, his anchor, his faithful partner. I prepared his lunches for work, met him with hot dinners, listened to his stories about challenges and triumphs, always encouraging him and instilling faith in his abilities. I never questioned his decisions, believing he always acted in the best interest of our family. When our first child, James, was born, and then our daughter Sophia 3 years later, our happiness seemed boundless. Robert was a caring father who always found time for the children, despite his busy schedule. We often spent weekends together, going on hikes and having family evenings. Our children grew up in love and harmony, and I was proud of the family we had created. I considered myself the happiest woman in the world. The first warning bells began to ring very gradually, almost imperceptibly, like tiny cracks on a perfectly smooth surface. I noticed that Robert began spending more and more time at work. His calls became shorter, and his voice sometimes seemed tired or even somewhat distant. He often spoke of major projects and important negotiations that demanded his constant presence. I believed him. Why would I not believe him? He was my husband, the father of my children, the man I trusted more than myself. Sometimes he would return home late at night, and he smelled of expensive perfume that was not his own. When I asked about it, he waved it off, saying it must have been from someone in the office. I accepted his explanations without question. I did not want to believe anything bad. I pushed away any unpleasant thoughts, as that would have shattered my entire perfect world. One time I found receipts in his pocket from restaurants that were far too expensive for regular business meetings and on a Saturday evening. He explained it by saying he just had to meet an important client who preferred an informal setting. I believed him then. I truly wanted to believe him. The pivotal event that revealed Robert's true face to me occurred in the summer, as we prepared to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. I had been planning this occasion for months, wanting to make it unforgettable, for it was our silver jubilee, a symbol of our strength and longevity. Robert was incredibly busy, as always, his new projects consuming all his time. I handled all the organizational matters myself, choosing the venue, sending out invitations, creating the menu, but this did not bother me. I believed it was better this way, as he trusted me with everything, and I wanted everything to be perfect. One morning, as I was tidying our study, I accidentally knocked over a folder containing his important documents. It fell, and several papers scattered out of it. Among them was a small, neatly folded card. My heart skipped a beat. It was a birthday card addressed to my dearest Robert, and the signature was, "With love, Amelia." On the inside fold, a tender, personal message was written, one that only someone very close could have penned. My hands trembled. This could not be a business partner or a colleague. The handwriting was feminine, elegant, and the words were filled with such intimacy that an alarm immediately sounded in my head. I felt a cold current surge through my body, like icy water. I tried to calm myself, to persuade myself that it was some kind of misunderstanding. Perhaps it was a card from a relative I did not know? But my heartbeat quickened, and my mind refused to accept that explanation. I began to sift through the other papers in the folder, searching for answers. And then I found something else. It was a copy of a birth certificate. It listed the name of a boy, Daniel, his date of birth, 10 years ago, and the names of the parents, Robert James Smith and Amelia Evans. My maiden name is James. This was not a coincidence. This was my husband's name. The air was knocked out of my lungs. I felt the floor sway beneath me. 25 years. 25 years of a life dedicated to him, to our family, to our children. And all this time, he had been living a double life, with another woman, and perhaps even another family. A birth certificate from 10 years ago. That meant his betrayal had been ongoing for an entire decade. For 10 years, he had come home, embraced me, kissed our children, and then gone to another woman, to another child. He had built two worlds, and I was only a part of one of them, completely unaware of the other's existence. I held these papers in my hands, and they felt so heavy, as if made of lead. I felt my eyes well up with tears, but they did not fall. There was a sense of complete numbness. It was not just shock, it was the destruction of my entire world, all my notions of life, of love, of trust. The man I had entrusted my life to turned out to be a perfect liar. His smile, his tender words, his promises, all of it was empty dust, sifting through my fingers. I looked at our family photographs displayed on the table, at the smiling faces of our children, at my own happy face. And suddenly, all of it seemed like a farce, a cruel joke. I felt something new boiling inside me, not just pain, but a deep, burning resentment and a fierce desire for justice. That was the moment my faith in Robert died. The next few days were a true nightmare. I tried to gather myself, but every breath felt agonizing. I could not look at Robert without revulsion. His hugs felt cold and alien to me, and his words of love, dirty. I felt my soul tearing apart. My first impulse was to confront him, to expose him immediately, but I knew it had to be done correctly. I had to know everything before I struck. I began secretly investigating his life. I hired a private detective who quickly confirmed my worst fears. He provided me with photographs of Robert with Amelia and a small boy, Daniel. They looked like a real family, walking in the park, going to stores, dining in restaurants. It was painful to witness, but it strengthened my resolve. The detective also found Amelia's address. My heart pounded as I drove up to their house. It was a cozy cottage with flowers in the windows and toys on the lawn. Everything looked as if true happiness resided there. I saw her, a slender woman with long blonde hair, stepping out of the house, holding the boy's hand. It was Daniel, my stepson, whose existence I had never even suspected. She was smiling, her eyes shining with happiness. It was the same look I once saw in my own eyes when I looked at Robert. I felt unbearable pain, but at the same time, a strange clarity. She was an innocent victim of his deception, just as I was. She did not know he was married. It was obvious from her demeanor. He lied to both of us, building his life on falsehoods. I decided not to confront her as it would destroy her world just as mine had been destroyed. I felt that my revenge should be directed solely at Robert, the one who was the sole culprit in this dreadful drama. I returned home, devastated, but with a new, cold determination. I knew I needed to gather more evidence to make his downfall grand and irreversible. I began collecting all possible documents related to his finances, his company, his property. I wanted to uncover the entire truth without omission. As I began to delve into Robert's financial affairs, the world around me started to crumble even faster. I had always believed he was an honest man, conducting business cleanly and transparently. But it turned out this was far from the truth. I found numerous discrepancies in his accounting books, strange transactions, large sums of money transferred to accounts I knew nothing about. I discovered that he had been using our company's funds to finance his double life, as well as for dubious investments that brought him personal gain but endangered our joint business. This was not just deceit, this was fraud. I found contracts for property purchases registered in Amelia's name, which had been paid for from our joint accounts, as well as the company's accounts. He bought her gifts, paid her bills, financed her lifestyle, using money we had earned together. He even transferred significant sums to a savings account opened in Daniel's name. I felt cheated and betrayed to the core of my soul. This was not just an affair, it was systematic financial manipulation that jeopardized not only our family's assets, but also the future of our children, James and Sophia. I realized that all these years he had not just lied to me, but had also robbed me, using my trust as a cover. My hope that all of this would turn out to be a terrible mistake vanished like smoke. I understood that Robert was not at all the man I had known and loved. I gathered all these proofs, every check, every bank transfer, every document that confirmed his financial manipulations. I was ready for a battle, and I knew it would be a battle for my honor, for my life, for the future of my children. I needed the perfect moment for the exposure, so that his downfall would be as public and painful as my own pain. I felt a cold resolution fill every cell of my body. The most painful blow was the realization of how he had deceived our children, James and Sophia. They adored their father, saw him as a role model, a man who was always there. And he, it turns out, was dividing his paternal love and attention with another child, hiding it from them. I imagined how they would react to this news, and my heart ached with pain. But I understood that the truth, however bitter, is always better than a lie. Our 20th wedding anniversary was approaching, a grand celebration that Robert had meticulously organized. He insisted on a lavish ceremony, inviting all our friends, relatives, and business partners. He wanted it to be a celebration of his success, his ideal family, his impeccable reputation. I realized this was the perfect moment for my revenge. He himself had set the stage for his downfall. A few days before the Jubilee, Robert gifted me a luxurious diamond necklace. He said it was a symbol of our eternal love and his gratitude for all these years. His words were full of hypocrisy, but I smiled, accepting the gift. I knew this necklace would become part of his exposure. I remembered how he always spoke of his devotion, of how nothing was more important to him than our family. These words now sounded like empty promises, dissipating into the air. I carefully planned every step. I contacted my lawyer to ensure all my actions would be legal and have maximum impact. I gathered all the evidence, printed photographs, copies of documents, bank statements. I understood it would not be easy, but I was full of determination. I was no longer that naive Elizabeth who believed his every word. I was a woman who had gone through pain and betrayal, and now I was ready to fight for my dignity and for the future of my children. I felt a cold resolve fill every cell of my body. The banquet hall was packed. About 150 guests had gathered to celebrate our silver anniversary. Robert was at the center of attention, accepting congratulations and smiling at everyone who approached him. He looked happy and confident, as if completely unsuspecting. He wore an expensive tuxedo, and on his face was the same charming smile that had once captured my heart. James and Sophia, our children, sat beside us, radiating pride in their parents. I felt their innocence and understood that it was for their sake that I had to do this. When it was time for toasts, Robert rose first. His voice was loud and confident as he spoke of our unbreakable unity and eternal love, of how I had been his muse and anchor throughout all these years. He held my hand, and I felt his fingers gently squeeze my palm, as if he still believed that his lie was unshakable. His eyes searched for mine, and in them I saw only self-satisfaction and false tenderness. I allowed him to finish, maintaining a calm expression on my face. The air grew even more tense. When he sat down, his face glowed with satisfaction from his own speech. It was my turn. I slowly stood up, feeling all eyes on me. I wore an elegant evening gown, and around my neck, the diamond necklace Robert had given me sparkled. My hands trembled slightly, but my voice was surprisingly steady. I began to speak, looking directly into his startled eyes. Dear friends, family, partners. Today, we celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. It is a significant date, symbolizing strength, trust, and devotion. I paused, allowing my words to sink into every corner of the hall. But today, I would like to tell you another story. A story hidden behind this glittering facade. A dead silence fell in the hall. Robert began to fidget nervously. His face turned as white as chalk. He tried to stop me, reaching for my hand, but I pulled it away. Elizabeth, what are you doing? This is not the time for such conversations, he hissed through clenched teeth, trying to grab my arm. On the contrary, Robert, this is precisely the time, I replied, and my voice grew even stronger. Today, on our 20th anniversary, I want to reveal the truth about the true face of my husband. I pulled out the copy of Daniel's birth certificate from my pocket. I held it up so everyone could see. This document, I began, is the birth certificate of a boy named Daniel. His mother is Amelia Evans. And his father, Robert James Smith. Our Robert. The hall erupted in noise. Guests began to whisper, their faces expressing complete surprise and shock. Some stood up from their seats, trying to get a better look at the document. James and Sophia looked at me with wide, bewildered eyes, not understanding what was happening. Robert lunged at me, trying to snatch the paper from my hands. You've gone mad. This is nonsense, he yelled, his voice rising to a shout. No, Robert, it is not nonsense. It is the truth, I said, stepping back from him. And that is not all. For many years, Robert used the funds of our joint company, money we earned together, to finance his double life. He bought real estate for another woman, supported her and her child, while I lived in ignorance, believing in his devotion. I pulled out a stack of printed bank statements and copies of property deeds. "Here is the proof," I said, throwing them onto the table, and they scattered across the white tablecloth like dirty stains. The amounts and names were clearly visible on them. Every diamond on this necklace, which Robert gave me today as a symbol of our eternal love, I gestured to my necklace, is a part of his lie. The value of this necklace may be minuscule compared to the broken heart, the trampled trust, and the ruined life. This necklace was bought with money stolen from our company, money that should have gone to our children's future. Some guests gasped. James and Sophia, pale and stunned, finally understood what was happening. I saw tears in their eyes, pain and disappointment. That was the hardest part. Robert stood frozen, his face contorted with fury and helplessness. He tried to say something, but the words caught in his throat. His reputation, which he had so meticulously built, shattered into pieces right before the eyes of everyone present. It was his moment of shame, his public downfall. I felt the burden that had weighed on me for months finally lift from my shoulders. Almost 1 year has passed since that day when the truth was revealed in the banquet hall. That evening became a turning point in my life, the end of one era and the beginning of a new one. Robert, after the public exposure, tried to deny everything, but the evidence was irrefutable. His business partners turned away from him, the company faced serious difficulties, and his reputation was utterly ruined. He faced numerous lawsuits regarding financial manipulation and fraud. I filed for divorce, and it was a lengthy and painful process, but I was determined to obtain justice. James and Sophia, our children, went through a difficult period. It was incredibly painful for them to learn the truth about their father, but they understood that I did it for their sake, to protect them from further lies. We talked a lot, and I tried to explain to them that betrayal is a weakness, and honesty is a strength. They supported me, and our relationship grew even stronger. I saw them mature and become wiser, understanding that life can be unfair, but one must always fight for the truth. Amelia, the other woman in his life, was shocked to learn the truth. She had not known about my existence, and her world was also shattered. I felt no anger towards her, only pity. We met, and I told her everything. She thanked me for my honesty and said that she, too, was cutting all ties with Robert. She had to start life anew, raising her son on her own. As for me, I found new strength within myself. I returned to my dream of becoming a history teacher. I enrolled in courses, obtained the necessary certifications, and now I teach at a local college. My life has been filled with new meaning. I feel free and independent. I no longer live in illusions. I learned to trust my intuition and will never again allow anyone to deceive me. This story taught me that the truth always surfaces, however bitter it may be. It can be painful, but it is liberating. It taught me that self-belief and dignity are more important than any illusions of happiness. Perhaps you, who are listening to this story, have also faced betrayal or deceit in your life. Did you find the strength within yourselves to fight for the truth, or did you allow the deception to go unpunished?